Hi, I'm Allie. Join me for this Eternal Lasso necklace design featuring some leather and new Potomac's beads as well as wire. Remember, if you need any supplies for this fun Sheryl design, you can look below the video in the description for links to get the exact products that were used, as well as some other videos that will be helpful to you in this design element. Gather up your materials and let's get started. So to get started with our infinite lasso necklace, we are going to be using some 20 gauge gold Potomac's jeweler's wire. I'm using the 20 gauge wire to create links with my Buddha head collection here that are going to link on to little lassos that we're making, or infinite leather loops. We're making the links to loop onto the leather, and in her sample piece of the design, Sheryl used 24 gauge wire. Because I have a bigger bead rather than the starburst bead, I'm going to use a thicker wire and just for a different look. In the design also then, we are going to use a thinner wire to make our figure eights with some leather, and we're going to use 21 gauge half round for that. To begin, we want to make our coiled loops with our 20 gauge wire, and we are going to start out needing our needle nose plier, our wire cutter, round nose plier, and you may want to have handy a nylon jaw plier for straightening out your wire. To begin, you see that I've already done a bunch of my Buddha heads. I'm doing this efficiently one step at a time. So I'm going in and making my links. Then I'll go in and connect the links with the leather. So right now I don't need my leather. I can take that out of the way. I don't need my thinner wire. I'm just working with the Buddha heads, which also come in a collection of all the different rainbow colors. And I picked out some colors, just kind of a soft, nice summer look. I'm going into my wire, and I'm going to cut with the wire a manageable size of wire. If you've never done wire working before, that might just be a 6-inch piece. If you've done wire working before, you may want to use 2 feet of wire so you have less waste. I'm starting with about 10 inches of wire. It's easy then to manage to stay in frame. If you've never done wire working before, I'll put a link in the description down below the video, which also links to these products in case you want them, but also will have suggested videos to look at, like making coiled wire eye pins. That's what these links are, is we're making links with coiled wire. So to do so, we're going to grab the end of our wire, and I've already determined the size of the loop that I need. Keep in mind, whatever leather you're using, whether or not you're using 1 millimeter, 1.5, 2, 3, etc., you need to make the loops of your links large enough to be able to have the leather fit through comfortably. I'm going to hold the wire with my round nose pliers, and I'm holding it so that I have a bird's eye view of one jaw of the pliers directly overhead like you have. Holding the wire, I'm going to bend those pliers to the back. What that does then is give me a view of both jaws of the pliers. The wire then makes a 90-degree angle, and I'm going to take that short piece of wire that made that 90-degree angle from bending my pliers around the top jaw of the pliers. Bending it fully around, you're going to get to a point where it looks a little bit like a bobby pin, where the wire touches itself on the opposite side. Now we want to complete the loop. So what we're going to do to complete the loop is twist the pliers in our hands. We're going to rotate the pliers, so what was that top jaw becomes the bottom jaw of the pliers. The short piece of wire is going to bend 90 degrees to the back of the plier, and then you're going to have your eye pin. That eye pin is a loop, and our goal is that it's going to sit directly over the top of the longer piece of wire. I want you to switch out to your needle nose pliers, hold that loop, and then you're going to wrap or coil the extra 20 gauge wire around the longer base wire. I left myself enough to do 2 loops. Because it's a thicker wire, I don't want to poke myself or cut myself. It's better to take your wire cutters flat side down towards the project, cover your hand so you don't get wire in your eye, and just do a little clip. Now that end is not fully down. I'm not worrying about it right now. I'm going with efficiency. I don't want to have to go back and do another step. I'll go through after I have one of my coil links and flatten down that end of the coil. From here, I'm going to put on one of my Buddha heads. And if your wire gets a little bit twisted up, you can use your nylon jaw pliers, but also I want you to see that way of going ahead and twisting the bead on. It's always a better idea to twist the bead onto the wire rather than force it. You are less likely to break your bead. Putting your bead on the wire then, if the wire gets bent up here at the top, that's when you grab your nylon jaw pliers and you flatten out that wire and straighten it out so your bead will fit on naturally and easily. These beads are check glass beads, which means they have approximately 0.8 millimeter hole. They will accompany, or they will take 20 gauge wire and lower, so 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. But you're going to find it hard to get anything thicker than 20. You can sometimes get 18 gauge wire through, but no promises. From here, I'm going to create another loop on the other side of my Buddha head. I want the loop to face in the same direction, so I'm going to hold my Buddha to the side with that loop to the side, hold that wire, leaving just a little bit of space right above the Buddha head, enough that I can remake that coiled section above. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to bend that wire to the side to once again expose those beads, giving just a little bit of a different view. You can see the wire is going to come over the top. It's longer now. Hit Buddha, switch my top jaw to my bottom jaw of my pliers, and complete to that 90-degree turn. Take it out of my round nose pliers and go ahead and coil that extra once and twice around. Once you have those 2 extra coils, go ahead and cut off that extra wire and put that Buddha down. Time to do it again. I'll do it again now quickly, just so you can see how fast you can get at this wire working. Holding it, bending the wire over, making a loop. If you don't want to pick up your nylon jaw or your needle nose pliers, you can use your round nose pliers, bend around, put on your Buddha. At the top here, bend to the side, bend around, so you can see how quick you can do it, and it's almost like a sleight of hand. You can't actually tell what's going on because it's so quick to go in and to make these loops. Once you have all of these loops created, depending on your necklace, how many you're going to need, 16 to 18 if you want to do a 32-inch and have about the same size of little lasso loops, you're going to go back into the project now with that needle nose pliers and bend down that little loop. Go ahead around and make sure that it's bent down, forcing that loop to kind of stick in its place. If you have a hard time and it just keeps kind of sliding around, you can see if you can actually cut it a little bit closer. Once I have them pinched down, I also even up my loops in case one's off to the side a little bit, make them look consistent from top to bottom. Going in and pinching that down, kind of spiraling it around, making sure that my loops look consistent, facing the same way onto the next. So I'm going to go through now and do quality control on all of these Buddhas, wrap a couple more, and then we'll get ready to do our little leather lassos. Once you have all of your Buddha heads ready to go and you've flattened out that wire, it's time to get ready to make your little lassos of leather. So the first thing you want to do is figure out how long or how big you want that little infinite lasso loop to look. So I'm going to put my wire in from here, from my spool, so I'm not working, or my leather rather, so I'm not actually going in and wasting any. And I'm going to look at it and say, okay, how big do I actually want that loop to be? If that's about it, and I say, yep, that's good. I know I'm going to want a little bit more leather to hold on to. I'm going to go in and do 3 times the length of the distance between the beads. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3 times the length. And I'm going to cut that off. Once I have that, I need to do enough pieces of this leather that I can do this multiple times. So I'm going to go in and do, right now I have 12 of my beads that are done. So right now I need at least 12 pieces of my leather. So go ahead and cut all of your little pieces of leather to help save you some time. Then put that leather off to the side. Once you have those cut, you are going to also want your first 2 links, and you are going to want your half round wire. You can do this with round wire or half round. I like the look of half round. If you've never worked with half round before, it's flat on one side and rounded on the other. So if you are looking at a circle or round wire, so we used 20 gauge round wire, and then we cut that circle in half. That top half or bottom half is going to be our half round wire. So while this wire seems a lot thinner, it is actually 21 gauge, so it's not that much thinner. If you want to use just a full round wire, I would suggest 24 gauge for your round wire. I'm using 21 gauge for my half round. I'm going to take my first piece of leather and I'm going to put it into my link and fold it over so it meets almost halfway. Take my next link and fold that over so it meets halfway as well. You want some overlap of your leather. So you want to look at the leather, kind of judge it that it's halfway in between, and you want to look in the middle and have 3 pieces of your cord that is lining up together in the middle. You want about an equal amount of cord on the top as you have on the bottom as well. From here, we're going to make sure that it's pretty much centered, and we're going to grab our half round wire. Naturally coming off a spool or a loop, the half round wire tends to be flat side down, rounded side up. You can kind of flatten that out a little bit. Pinch that wire, or that cord rather, and hold it. And I'm going to take the wire and we are going to use the wire to wrap tightly around our leather cord. We're going to wrap it however many times you want just for the look, making sure that we hold it and make it kind of even on both sides, and also determining how many loops we want. I would suggest at least 4 wraps, if not 6 to 8, to hold it in place. So you can see I had a little bit of a tail. I went through and I wrapped and I did that half round coil. I'm going to take my needle nose pliers now, and I'm going to literally flatten out that wire. What that's going to do is pinch the leather, pinch those coils together, and then we want them to end on the same side. So see how this one's already to one side? Let's go ahead and bend that half round to the other side. We're going to cut the cord, or the wire, that it ends in the back, in the middle of our leather connection. The reason we're doing that is because we don't want it to scratch. So when we flatten out that last little piece here, we're going to make sure that it's pretty much stuck to the middle of the cord. Next thing I'm going to do is we are going to trim down our leather. So I'm going to go in here just with my wire cutters, trim down that leather right below that coiled section, and also the other piece right above. If you want to, you can keep it on, that's up to you. But now we have our first little connection and link. I'm going to continue that same process, linking in my little seafoam color Buddha head as well. So we're going to continue to build these little infinite coiled lasso links and link all of our beads together along the necklace itself. Once you finish with all your coils and making your little infinite loops of leather, you have to decide if you're going to make this a shorter necklace, a longer necklace, just have it opera line kind of going over your neck like Sheryl's with her fun little starburst kiwis here. And I'm going to show you, in case you want to make it, that you can use it in a couple different ways. I'm going to make an S-hook. The S-hook will then allow me, if I want to wear this as a 2-strand necklace, or to keep it long as a longer necklace. So it'll give me a little bit of options when I come to wearing it. I've gone ahead and done my 2 loops at the end here of my leather, and now we're going to make an S-hook. So I have my 20 gauge, and then I have my next color of my Buddha head. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire, and this right here is about 3.5 inches of wire. I'm holding about 2 inches down, and I'm going to bend the wire around my Sharpie and just kind of get that loop there. We're going to slide our Buddha in place on our wire here. We're going to let him hang out so he's kind of getting poked in the eye, actually poked in the mouth by that loop. On the other side, we're going to do the same thing and bend the wire in the opposite direction around the Buddha too. So see how you have that just little figure 8 hook. We're going to bend the wire in a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is grab my round nose pliers, going to hold at the very end, and I'm just going to roll that wire back so that it's touching on the back side of the wire. Same thing here, roll that wire back. If you want to, you can make this even smaller so it ends on the sides of the Buddha. So what you can do is, if you want to, cut it down a little bit. So if the Buddha moving all around drives you kind of crazy, you can make this happen a little bit tighter. So I'm going to do this as well. Make that loop a little bit smaller. Make that curled in. And the reason we're curling the wire up at the end is so that it does not poke against you or your clothing. At the bottom, we're going to do the same thing here, making that loop just a little bit smaller a little bit tighter as we work with a thinner gauge wire. Ideally, if you have an 18 gauge wire, that's what I would suggest using to make your hook or your clasp, because it's going to make it a little bit more stable. From here then, you'll take your S hook and put through one end of your leather, and your S hook and put through the other end of the leather. The other thing that you can do is use a supporting bead here, or you can coil wire on either side of your Buddha head to keep it stabilized. At this point though, your necklace is completed and you have all those fun infinite lassos. I also want to just show as a suggestion, Sheryl made a little earring sample also, going in and getting ready to do that same coil, but instead then what she did is just cut off the ends. So you did the coil here and then she just cut off right below it for a nice little fun earring addition to make it a set. Thanks so much for joining me in creating this Sheryl design of the Eternal Lasso bracelet, necklace, or anklet design. You can have a lot of fun even linking the leather together and skipping the beads altogether. Remember, if you do need any supplies, want to check out that new wire or even the collections, go ahead and look below the video in the description. As always, comment and help out other Potomac beaders that may be watching and either struggling to get ideas, exact techniques, or help them and encourage them along the way. Subscribe to us so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads, and stay tuned for our next inspirational design.